Colin, what trends are you seeing within group risk benefits and support?
Group risk benefits over the last 5 years or so has really accelerated in terms of its innovation, in terms of its digitisation, and desire to really understand and drive health and well-being. So those are probably the biggest trends that I've seen. And I think a lot of this has come out of the pandemic, where as an industry, I believe, both from an intermediary and a provider perspective, we really stepped up. Our clients and customers really needed help. Their employees were in a completely different place. And therefore, we really did need to respond to that. And I think we did really well. So not only did we accelerate the way we interacted and the way we paid claims, but actually we also went into overdrive on advertising the wellbeing benefits that we were providing embedded within the products and worked really, really well with the intermediary market. So we've seen a continuation of that, although quite clearly we've normalized working patterns now. So that, if you like, visibility of mortality, morbidity from an individual perspective, really understanding that much clearer. I think that seems to have tailed off slightly, but companies are really interested in making sure they're meeting the needs, health and well-being needs of their people.
And do you think this conversation could have taken place or to the point where it is now without the pandemic?
I think the pandemic really drove digitisation, because quite clearly we had loads of our people at home too. Most of us, I think, were in reasonable shape and ready for it, coincidentally, because we were all looking to make sure our organisations are really efficient. But actually what the pandemic did was make it not negotiable. We had to drive that development, and it worked really well.
And what are the challenges for employers in terms of group risk, and how can they best prepare?
A lot of the debate today, for example, has been about the impact of other benefits. It's been notable today that, let's face it, there is a finite budget. That budget's being squeezed by some fairly significant increases in PMI premiums. And those increases are clearly because that benefit is being used in a way that potentially it wasn't earlier, and there's a number of reasons for that debated today. So what we're finding in group protection is highly competitive pricing, really competitive pricing. It's difficult to hold on to customer, but in our marketplace, customers are sticking with their current provider broadly. So I think competitive pricing has been the big thing. We have seen a worsening in death in service claims, life assurance claims, as a result of the pandemic. So premiums have increased slightly. And we have seen an improvement in group IP premiums. So those are short to medium term impacts from a group protection perspective. But ultimately, you've got a client wrestling with a finite budget, whereby they've got to try to balance that to stay within budgets if they can.
And do you think as a result of that, employers might pull away from the group risk that they're involved in?
I don't think so. I think what's happening is that diversity, equity and inclusion has become a real drive over the course of the last 12 to 24 months. Certainly for mid-size and larger corporates, but as a theme is very clearly on the agenda of the corporate. So, and for example, a good way to meet some of that is to write a life assurance policy. Life assurance premiums are relatively cheaper than any other benefit. And actually most providers in the group protection market are now providing a range of value-added benefits as part of being a life assurance policyholder. And those benefits will certainly impact employees on a daily basis who are looking to drive their health and well-being on a regular basis.
Is there an area of group risk you're particularly concerned about or think employers need to be prioritising more?
I think my concern overall, and we've talked a lot at GRID about this, is employee engagement. It's a really core area for us to drive the market forward. As we've mentioned, in the pandemic, it became easier almost to do that. We need to make sure that we can do that. Now, the challenge for employee engagement is that you've got to make sure that structurally, strategically, and culturally within the business, the group protection benefit is aligned to the corporate purpose and the corporate strategy of that company. It's only one element of what makes the business work, and we should make sure we understand that. So I think that cultural drive to make sure you engage your employees all the way through the process is really, really important, because we can't do employee engagement well without the approval at the top to do so. And we've also got to think about the complexity in relative terms of the sorts of innovation that we've all introduced. So if you've got a life assurance with one provider, a PMI with another, a JIP with another, potentially you've got multiple benefits, and potentially, if we don't get it right, confusion for the line manager and the employee as to what benefit they should be accessing and when.